Behold to what I believe to be the best price 72-inch zero turn on the market, Bad Boy's Rebel, with, in this case, a 34 horsepower fuel injected Kawasaki engine. And that's absolutely one of our favorite things about Bad Boy, is the fact that, yes, I just said this is the most affordable 72-inch you can get on the market, but as I go around this mower, as I talk about the specs, everything you're getting, what you need to consider when you're buying a mower, you are not sacrificing quality. You are not sacrificing reliability. You're getting something that's a really robust mower that can last for 10, 15, 20 plus years, which is what you're after, because someone who's hunting for a 72-inch mower, it absolutely could be a commercial landscaper. I think it's more rare. I think I hear more often that landscapers are getting into that 60 or 61-inch cut, but I think of a homeowner with really large acreage, this being a really popular option for. But if you're a landscaper, absolutely consider this, because I do know some landscapers that like rocking that 72-inch setup. It just depends on the properties you've got. Now, if you're in this market for a 72-inch mower, which I really think if I had large acreage, which I do, I would be considering a 72-inch mower. And I'll tell you, you hear that question. I get the question all the time, Matt, what's the mower that you take home, or what do you have sitting in your property? And I can't ever answer that question great, because I always grab the biggest and baddest demo we have or trade in, and that's what I tend to use. But my favorite thing to get is a 72-inch mower for my property. Now, I have a property that's fairly flat, and that is something probably you want to consider, because if you have a lot of undulations where your ground is not, perfectly level, that is one thing you have to consider with a larger deck. Scalping possibilities. And that depends on who you are, how particular you are about your grass. For me, if there are little points of unevenness because you have a little bit of scalping, to me that's well worth it for little spots here and there throughout your lawn, because you're cutting really large acreage, and that's saving a significant amount of time when you add that extra foot. Now, you guys probably didn't want to just hear about my situation and just 72 in general. Let's talk about this more, why I think this is probably the absolute best buy if you're in the market for a 72-inch mower and you're thinking more from that budget. So let's jump right in. So let's talk about Bad Boy in general, because all the things that we know about Bad Boy really ring true in this example. You're getting a really heavy-duty deck, the heaviest duty decks in the industry. And this is what's really nice about the 72-inch model, is this is the first time that you're getting Bad Boy's 3-gauge deck. If you go to the class below this, which I've got right over there, it's a Maverick HD. And like I said, Bad Boy is known for their heavy-duty decks in this industry. If you go as low as a 42-inch mower with Bad Boy, you're getting a 7-gauge deck. Typically, with most other commercial brands, that's exactly the case, is you have to go to commercial to get that heavy-duty deck. But no one else in the industry is doing this 3-gauge deck. And if you look around this thing, and I always point this out when I get up close to these decks, and I look at some of the thickness of this steel and how they weld these pieces on there, this will absolutely go through anything. So if you're worried about things in the grass that you can't see, stumps, rocks, everything's gonna bump against that, and the deck's not gonna be the thing that gets damaged. And Bad Boy puts this kind of angled slope nose edge that gives extra reinforcement, and not everyone in the industry will give you these anti-scalping wheels with a protection on each side. So everything about this is really robust, and again, you can see these really thick points. You got 1/4-inch steel, when we're talking about 3-gauge, 1/4-inch steel as that base for your deck. And to pair along with the deck, what are the other things that are standard on Bad Boy mowers that you get that is no different here on the Rebel series? It is accessibility. So let's look a little closer at the deck, but let's not look on the sides. Let's actually look from where our foot plate is here. And all you've got to do to get access is spin this piece off right here. And so I'm gonna go ahead and take that off. And what you can do is actually set this back in. And if you're working there in the deck, this is kind of a fail-safe way that this is not going to fall on you, so you got a little bit of protection. But if you look in at the deck, big wide open spaces. They're gonna tell you that deck belt route, no different probably in any other mower brand. But you got really nice spindle housings under this pulley that you can't see. One nice thing with Bad Boy is they're very rebuildable spindles. So you got bearings in the top and bottom, and very easy to rebuild. It's a very cylindrical, straight spindle, nothing crazy complicated going on. So it's really easy to take this off and put new bearings in there. So just attributing to those kind of ease of maintenance points that you get with a Bad Boy mower. But the fact that I can see so much and just how simple it is to pull that up, that's a really nice feature. To go hand in hand with the accessibility of Bad Boy, you can flip this up right here. And again, I've got access to these two pulleys back here. And typically on a mower, especially when you have this caliber of a mower, you get really large transmissions that are in here. So if you watch any stuff on the channel, I'm constantly talking about transmissions, and this is what really matters. I think really matters on a 72-inch mower. You have to have a transmission that is suitable to carry that large load, and then you also have to think about the horsepower of an engine. There are a lot of options out there. They can get a 72-inch mower and a 25 horsepower deck. Everyone wants to talk about the horsepower of a motor, and it is important. It's probably the most important with this conversation right here. So we're gonna talk about transmissions, we're gonna talk about engines. Let's dive to this engine point a little bit more, because if you have a 25 horsepower engine, everybody thinks that's all that matters. It is very important on the 72-inch model because you've got that much more grass you're trying to get cut and disperse out there. So if you only have a 25 horse or a 27 horse on a 72-inch mower, just don't think it's gonna be enough. You're gonna see more bogging type of action. Bad Boy's gonna give you a couple different engine options right here, and you know, this price point, that's what's so amazing about this is it's $10,349. And for that dollar, you're getting a great engine option. This is a 34 horsepower fuel injected Kawasaki. So this is our FX 820V Evo engine. We love the Kawasaki's, we love the fuel injection. Bad Boy makes a series above this called a Rogue, and that's where you can get a 38.5 fuel injected Kawasaki. And that's an awesome option. We love the Rogue. We love the Rogue 72-inch, and I'm gonna talk about that a little bit more, but bang for buck, and I think just strict reliability, that's where we really like this Rebel series. So this is still a 34 horsepower engine. I think if you got a 72-inch deck, if you're getting in the mid-30s as far as horsepower, that will be plenty to disperse your grass. If you don't get this engine option, you can get a 35 horse carbureted Kawasaki. We've done some stuff on the channel, and we've recently done a video about fuel injected versus carbureted. There's a whole debate there, right? Check that video out if you're kind of wondering, should I get fuel injected or carbureted? Probably depends on the type of person that you are. But that's an awesome engine option. I think, to me, I would really want something above a 30 horsepower engine if I was getting into a 72-inch deck. And like I said, I am under the camp that I like the 72s. There are people out there that are gonna tell you no because of, you know, a little bit of scalping, but to me it's real minimal, and it does depend on your property. Now the other thing, like I said, is the transmissions. Now with Bad Boy, and you talk about the accessibility, there is a plate right here that is blocking, that's obstructing our view a little bit, but there is right here a drive belt that's actually quite accessible. There is a bolt right here and another bolt over on this side. And if you get under there, you can pull this plate right off, and you've got just total access if you need to get to the fan housing or things on those transmissions. So what are the transmissions that you're gonna get on this Rebel? It's a ZT 4400 transmission made by Hydro Gear. Now my opinion on transmissions is when you get to a ZT 3000 level and above, you're gonna have a much more robust transmission. Now, I still, even with that being said, in my shop, will see ZT 3100 transmissions replaced, and sometimes ZT 3400 transmissions replaced. It happens, but it is extremely rare that we are replacing ZT 4400 transmissions or ZT 5400 transmissions. Those are the biggest and baddest transmissions that Hydro Gear makes, and it's really rare that I see failure in that. Another thing when you're thinking of large acreage is you're thinking about how long it's going to take you to cut the grass. So when we talk about transmissions so much on this channel, it's going to determine the speed. And that's one thing that I see people that are more novice to the zero turn mower game is they think a 60-inch cut's a 60-inch cut. The big thing that determines speed or how fast that job's gonna get done, or the difference between a commercial mower and a residential mower, it's the transmissions. You're gonna be looking at 10 to 12 mile per hour ground speeds when you get into a ZT 4400 transmission. When I compare a ZT 5400 transmission to this ZT 4400 transmission, I personally, for as many mowers as I hop on, it's very hard for me to tell the difference in speeds between those two. When I get on a ZT 3400 transmission and I go to a ZT 4400 transmission, it feels like a monster difference in speed as you're going across the ground. Again, I don't see this monster difference in speed between the ZT 4400 and the 5400. And these are actually big, massive transmissions. So the fact that I'm getting a ZT 4400, to me, it's a super robust setup. It's absolutely adequate and very capable, you know, to hold this whole machine and last for a very long time. And another thing to piggyback on the whole ZT 4400 argument is you have two separate reservoirs for these, so it's very easy to service. And when we talk about getting a mower this caliber, of course, this has serviceable transmissions, meaning it has two oil filters on the side of those transmissions, and it's very easy to service because I can simply pop this off and I can pour right through there versus taking a nut off the top of the transmission. It just takes a little bit longer, so it's nice when you have an external reservoir. And if you go up just a little bit higher, you have two 6.5 gallon fuel tanks. So just a ton of fuel capacity, which is absolutely awesome, again, if you're thinking from that large acreage perspective. And so we signed on with Bad Boy a couple of years ago, and Rebel was a series that I didn't fully get at the time, and it seems like the first year I didn't stock quite as many of these Rebels. We've sold a ton of Rebels this year, and why was I a little bit apprehensive about this versus the other models is, well, this is a rigid frame. So let me go ahead and flip this down, and what I mean by rigid frame is everything here is static, it's not moving, there aren't any suspension type of pieces. Now you can definitely see this has a nice suspension seat right here, and I can tailor this to the weight of the individual, so that's really nice right there. This does a ton for the rider. But again, why was it a little disappointing? Well, you know, in Bad Boy series, they have at the ZT Elite level, they're giving you a front end axle that is actually pivoting off a rubber bushing. Then you go up to the Maverick series. They do that on the front, they do that on the back. They're adding these suspension elements, okay, beyond a suspension seat. Now those models I just mentioned, they don't have that really high-end suspension seat, but if you jump to the Maverick HD, this mower rides so nice. And we're talking about price points of different things. This is gonna be closer to a $9,000 price point. So you got a mower that actually is a little bit less in price, but it's got this front end suspension piece, and it's got the back end, and it has the air ride seat. So this one actually rides a touch better than this Rebel series. And so I saw that as kind of a disadvantage. Why would you go and jump up to the Rebel series when you've got this better riding mower? Well, it's not all about the ride. Now, obviously, that's really important, and that's a reason that I really like the Maverick HD. It's a reason that I like the Rogue series as well. The Rogue series does something similar, and it has trailing arms off the rear. It's one of our favorite mowers. It's a mower that I would really like. But what I've noticed about the Rebel series is, to me, it's almost the epitome of reliability, because with a rigid frame, you are getting consistency, and there are less moving parts on this entire machine. And so when you've got more simplistic type things, there have been a few cases. There's actually an update. Check this out if you're a Rogue owner. The Rogue has been a very reliable machine for us, but I'll say if I think of like warranty or things that have happened in the shop, I've had more, it seems like, Rogues that have come through the shop than the Rebel series. And I feel like in general, it's hard to pinpoint exactly why that might be, but I think there are less moving parts, like I said. And so what do people want when they're mowing their lawn? Of course you want a nice ride. You're getting a really nice ride with this seat right here. You're getting a little bit better ride if you go to the Maverick HD. You're getting a little bit better ride if you go to the Rogue. But simply, people do understand they are cutting their lawn. And so if you're not into the camp that it has to be like you're sitting on a cloud or the most comfortable thing you've ever sat on, but you want something that's gonna take a ton of brunt, this right here does a tremendous job of getting you a great ride. And besides having a great ride, you are getting ultra dependability with this kind of rigid frame design. And with all that, and without all these suspension elements, comes with a better price point. And it's that reason that we've sold a bunch of these Rebel 72 inches this year. And if I was looking from a strict budget standpoint, and I want to make sure that I'm not spending 12, 14 hours on the weekend trying to cut grass, this is one I would want to consider, because if you compare this Rebel 72, this is a little over $2,000 different price point to jump up to the Rogue with a similar horsepower or engine comparable option. So it's for all those reasons that I really think this is the best bang for buck you can get on the market. And like I said, if you jump up, so they have the Rogue series, you've heard me talking about it, that is one of the best priced 72-inch mowers on the market. But the fact that we're even a couple $1,000s less in price than that to get this Rebel, it's really appealing if you're looking at trying to, you know, control what that budget is. And you go out there on the used market, and if you get a really nice newer 72-inch model, you're probably going to be spending still at least $5,000. The difference when you buy a brand new mower is this is a machine that can last you 20 years versus that used one, you know, might be on its last 5 or 10 years of life. So think about that, you know, from a value perspective. It's really nice that you're getting all that for the money that we're talking about. Now, kind of a standard thing on this R series mower, the Rebel series, and they got the Rogue, you're gonna get run flat front tires. So again, when we talk about the reliability factor, that's just one less thing that I have to worry about that they've baked into this mower. And so I've been talking about the series below this and the Rogue, the series above it, but there is technically one other series that you could consider as well with Bad Boy, and that's the Rebel X. This is actually a used one that we're working on, but one thing that's nice on the Rebel X series is that will jump you up to those ZT 5400 transmissions, and they do have a tweel option, okay? So again, epitome of reliability. Then you could really jump one more to the Rebel X because you got run flat tires, which is really nice. If you jump up to the Rebel X series, here's one on my lot. This is one that we did not elect to get with the tweels. You do save money to not get the tweel option, but when you jump to the Rebel X series, that's when you're gonna go from a ZT 4400 transmission to a ZT 5400. The frames, everything else besides that will remain the same. You do get some more engine options, like this one right here has that 38.5 fuel injected Kawasaki option. So if you want that much more horsepower, a little bigger transmission, you can go to that point. But again, we're talking about probably best value you can possibly get. And I think a ZT 4400 transmission with a 34 horse engine, that's plenty. That is going to get your job done so much faster, and you're gonna stay right around this $10,000 price point. And so if I step up into this seat, you can go up to the Rogue series and get some real big frills and a big LED display screen. And again, just one more kind of cost savings thing here, but almost all their systems as you get into the higher end Bad Boys is gonna have this dial system. And I like the system right here. I can press this forward and pull up on this knob right here, and it will drop it to the desired deck height that I've got. And then hands-free, I can go ahead and put this in transport mode. So just some kind of simplistic features. And again, I got a lot of room in this area for a big guy. So everything you'd want with a 72-inch mower. And this mower as a whole, if you compare even the Maverick HD or compare the Rogue, those sit up a little bit higher. This one tends to sit a little bit lower to the ground. Always something we get lower to the ground. It's probably an advantage just from, you know, when you think about holding a hill or things of that nature. So point blank, if you are in the market for a 72-inch mower, this is one I would highly consider. If money is no object, then jump up, you know, go to that Rogue series. We got this crazy high-end suspension and an even bigger engine. But if you're thinking bang for a buck, and I want my dollar to go a long way, this Rebel 72 is absolutely something you gotta consider, and one of our favorite mowers here at Howe Equipment.